For risk management, actually the flow goes like this. First we come out with a risk register. Okay, the first is risk register. Now, so this will have the list of risks. So the first time identification happens during planning, and then it continues throughout the project. Okay, the first cut of the risk register happens during planning, and risk identification happens throughout the project. Now, for each of these risks, first thing is qualitative risk analysis. We call it as qualitative risk analysis. Okay, so for each of these risks, we'll give a probability number and we'll give an impact number. Now, let's say the first risk is now for the PMP certification. If you want to identify the risk for PMP, it could be 1 minute. For PMP, the risk could be maybe bad training can be a risk. Overconfidence, lack of preparation, then work pressure, maybe no money, no seat available. When you go to schedule the exam, no seats available. Now, which one we'll manage? Now, we have to I give a probability factor and an impact factor. Now, what is the probability of bad training? Maybe on a 10-point scale, let's say it's a 5. And what will be the impact of it? If the training is bad, will you fail? You may not fail because of your preparation and the past experience. Also, you will pass. So impact may not be very high. Maybe that is also 5, maybe on a 10-point scale. Overconfidence, since you are experienced, sometimes it is possible. Yeah, overconfidence, maybe on a 10-point scale, I'll put it at maybe 6. And impact can be failure in the exam. So impact can be very high. And lack of preparation, probability may be 3, but impact can be very high. You will fail. Work pressure, probability can be very high, and impact also will be very high. No money, probability is very low, but impact can be very high. No seat available, probability can be very high now because the syllabus is changing. So now there will be mad rush to write the exam. All those guys who are prepared using the old syllabus, they'll be scheduling their exam. So you may not get seats. And impact may not be very high. Only thing is that you will have to slightly postpone your thing. So you take a product of this. So this will be 25. This will be 54. This is 27. This is 54. This is 18. And this is 40. Now, every risk you cannot manage because risk management is expensive and time consuming. So you'll have to now prioritize. So every company may have some norms like it is not constant. Company to company it can change. We call it as a threshold. So maybe let's say our decision criteria is anything 30 and above we'll manage, but anything less than 30 it will be under observation. If that is the criteria applied, this we will manage, this we will manage, and this also we will manage. The rest of the things will be under observation. Now this process of filtering, we call it as qualitative risk analysis. Qualitative risk analysis. So this is a filtering out. You come out with the risk register, then you rank it based on their probability and impact, multiply, then apply a cutoff factor, which is a threshold, and then that whole process we call it as qualitative risk analysis. Now whatever is filtered out from here, so these things now again it will undergo one more round. We call it as quantitative risk analysis. Yeah, so one. So we have something called quantitative risk analysis. So this process is quantitative. Next process would be qualitative. So here it will be qualitative. First one is qualitative. Next is quantitative. Yeah, quantitative risk analysis. Now here we use things like a decision tree, decision trees and Monte Carlo analysis. All these things happens here. A decision tree is nothing but, yeah, I think that an example is given. Maybe I'll upload a video in the video that example is there of a decision tree. And there is something called Monte Carlo analysis, which is not very common. But then high profile projects where in projects like NASA and all, they use it. So this Monte Carlo analysis is an example of a simulation which comes under quantitative risk analysis. So it is not done manually. It is a OR based solution where you feed in all this data, and then based on so the computer does the simulation, and then see, now the logic is like this. If I have to make a risk impact, if I have to nullify a risk impact, the risk, either I should make this 0 or I should make this 0. Then P into I will become 0. So that is very expensive. A waterproof watch is more expensive than water resistant watch, or a earthquake resistant building is cheaper than earthquake proof building. So we cannot make it 0, that is very expensive. So we have to find out the ideal values. Maybe 5 may not be ideal, so maybe if I keep it at 3 and this if I keep it at 2, then maybe it's okay, kind of thing. So what it does is, okay, this runs through a simulation, iteration, maybe millions of times, and the output would be the most ideal values for the probabilities and impacts for the risk under consideration. So how it works is a black box for me, because unless you are an expert in operational research, you will not be able to understand the internals or the logic. But then this is what it does. From the exam perspective, you may get 1 or 2 questions. So Monte Carlo means immediately you should know that is a simulation exercise done by computers, and this is the purpose of it, to identify the optimal values of probabilities and impact, and the optimal schedule durations, because when the probabilities and impact changes, it will have an impact on the schedule duration as well. So if you buy on packages like SPSS, the statistical process, something SPSS and all, they have this function called Monte Carlo analysis. It is built in. But the logic part, if you go to internet, you get a lot of things, but then it's all based on operational research. So an in-depth understanding is not a must. And once we once we shortlist the risk after qualitative risk analysis and quantitative risk analysis, next would be uh, risk response planning. So we'll have risk response planning and contingency planning. Contingency plan. The risk response plan is now constructing an earthquake resistant building is a risk response plan. But then providing training to people on what to do when an earthquake is happening, that is a contingency planning. The risk is happening, then what you do, that is contingency planning. Risk response plan is what all things we do to reduce the effect of that risk. How to reduce the probability, how to reduce the impact kind of thing. That is risk response planning. Contingency is the risk is happening. Now what you do, that is contingency plan. The key thing in risk management is, okay, now there is something called negative risk, positive risk, primary risk, and secondary risk. Primary risk, secondary risk, and residual risk. Negative risk, okay, anything which affects your project negatively, that is a negative risk. There is something called a positive risk. Now, let's say you are opening a website, suddenly there is a heavy traffic, which is much, much higher than anticipated by you. The server can crash. Or you publish a book and you expect 20,000 copies to be sold in the first year. Then suddenly there is demand for 1 million copies. And when people are going to the bookstall, if this book is not available, that business opportunity is lost. So that is a positive risk. Something good is happening, but if you are unable to leverage it or exploit it, that opportunity is lost. That is a positive risk. Negative risk is all negative things. Primary risk is now, let's say, LTT was considered as a primary risk for Sri Lanka, maybe. So maybe that is eliminated now. Or Saddam Hussein was considered as a risk for Iraq problem. Yeah, that is eliminated now. But then without a strong ruler, now it is total problem there, total anarchy there. So that is a secondary risk. Or you take the medicine for a disease for a very long time, that itself can have side effects. That is a secondary risk. Then a residual risk. Now Sri Lanka is very peaceful, but again LTT can regroup and then again they can come back. So that is a residual risk. Or cancer patients, if you see, they take the medicines, everything. After all these therapies, okay, it's okay, it's all cured. But again, they should go for medical checkup because this can come back again. So that is a residual risk. After the risk management, some amount of, because we are not getting into an earthquake-proof building, we are getting into an earthquake-resistant building. So still some risk is remaining there after risk management. So that is the residual risk. So this you should understand: primary risk, negative, secondary risk, positive risk, negative risk, residual risk. Then, okay, in the presentation we are talking about a series of things, strategies for risk management. So we were talking about one is risk avoidance. Risk avoidance, so you just avoid. Smoking is bad for health. Best thing is don't smoke. So that is risk avoidance. Then risk control is there. You reduce the number of cigarettes you smoke, maybe a risk control. Risk transference. Risk transference is maybe taking an insurance is an example of risk transference, or outsourcing a complicated piece of work to some other company, that is risk transference. You transfer that risk to somebody else, but the risk is still there. Only thing is it is transferred to somebody else. So risk avoidance, risk control, risk transference, and the last one is acceptance. So sometimes you'll say, I'm willing to take that risk, no problem. So that is risk acceptance. So these things you must understand, because risk management, while reading it is very easy to understand, but then questions can be very slippery. But somehow people from the construction industry, they're very strong here, whereas people from the IT background, they are not very strong in risk management. And the problem with risk management is when you read it, everything is fine, but then questions can be very confusing sometimes. So you must give extra effort to risk management. Then you are asking me one more question. That was on human resource. The Maslow's hierarchy, human resource. Yeah, so okay, that's fine. Is this risk management, are you comfortable now? Now if you go back and read, I think it'll be easier. Yeah, see, actually monitoring and control happens from initiation onwards. Yeah, so in PMBOK, it is shown as a separate block: initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, and closing. But then there is no other way to represent it. But actually, and they always say that there is an overlap between these phases. So as per me, monitoring and controlling will start along with initiation. Yeah, it's not something that happens even after execution. Yeah, so it starts along with initiation and cuts across all the phases actually. So maybe a representation like this will be better. Maybe monitoring and controlling is fine. Then, okay, we have initiation, planning, execution, closing. Monitoring and controlling cuts across all these phases. Okay, so this representation is better. Yeah, now in this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's very interesting because this plays a major role in our stakeholder analysis also. So it talks about different stages. Whenever somebody joins an organization, the primary interest is roti kapda or makan. So I want money. I want to stop taking money from home. So I want money. So what motivates here is the basic needs. And once I have a job, a couple of years here, then by that time I'll take a couple of loans, credit cards and all those things, vehicle loan. Then I'll start thinking about security, job security. Then by the time I complete around 5 years in a company, I'll start thinking about the love needs. Do I really belong to this place? Should I continue here? Are people listening to my ideas? What is opportunity cost? Should I work for maybe Google, or should I start my own company, or should I go to some other country and work? Why should I continue here? Kind of. There is a love needs. Then comes the social esteem needs. So, see, my last job was with a company called Novel at Bangalore. So it was good time. Means every day banks used to call me and ask me like whether why can't you take one more loan? But then you feel good about it. At the same time, it's a disturbance as well. So that's fine. And you go for a function. People ask me where do you work, and if you just say Novel, they say, oh, that building on the Garve Bavi Palaya kind of thing. They even give me the address of my office. But today I may be making, by God's grace, maybe more money than my last salary. But if I go to a bank for a loan, they'll ask me to bring last 3 years financial transactions so that they can check whether I am credit worthy or not. So all these things takes a beating on your self-esteem sometimes. The esteem needs are not taken care of when you become self-employed, or so that is a risk. That is a risk which you are taking. So you may be working for IBM or a big multinational company. You may be totally dissatisfied there, but still you may hang around because the salary is good and the name is good. And actually what you're doing may be very meaningless work, but still you will hang around. So we used to call it as a golden handshake, a golden handcuffs maybe. Golden handcuff means your hands are cuffed, but then it's made of gold, so it's very difficult to throw it out. So esteem needs. Then comes the we have something called self-actualization. Self-actualization. So that is like, I really want to do what I want to do. Now Bill Gates is getting into charity. Narayana Murthy is doing something else. Nandanal Kenny gone into something else. So now they really want to pursue what they really want to do. So that is self-actualization. Sometimes the biggest problem is the dream planted in a youngster's mind is a good job by the parents and the society. So the moment he gets in here, its life's ambition is achieved. Then he'll become a burden to the society, for himself, because the year itself is self-actualization mode. So then he is not interested to do work. He is not motivated. He becomes a born cribber kind of thing, because the dream itself is very small and that is achieved very early in life. So the rest of the life, what you will do, because your life's ambition is already achieved, what you do? That's a problem actually. So we used to call them as retired on duty. So mentally retired, but still they are on duty because they want that money kind of thing. So this is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but then this is there for ages together. If you really look at it from the project management perspective, then it will give you new dimensions. This is very handy when it comes to stakeholder management. So if your stakeholders of the project, one classification was stakeholder. We had this classification like high power, high interest, high power, low interest, and all those things. Now, if you really look at your sponsor and all, most probably will be falling in somewhere here. But your team members and all will be falling in here and here. Senior team members, team leads and all, maybe project manager and all may be falling in here. So at this level, if I talk about project vision and all those things, they'll immediately lose interest, because what they want is money only. So here we should talk about next increment and all those things. Here we should talk about job security, if that person is falling into this category. Here we should do something. Money is not a big motivator here. It's a lot of other things. And at this level and all, don't talk about money. You should always talk about NPV, BZR, payback, profitability, market share. So those things they'll appreciate more than talking about next increment and all those things, a project vision and those kind of things. So if you can map your stakeholders into these layers, then the stakeholder management will become more effective. Otherwise, this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it was there for a very long time, maybe at least 3-4 decades it is there. But now, from the project management perspective, if you really look at it, you can really leverage it actually. Okay, so any other questions? Yeah, so by that time I'll add the assessment test. Today, tomorrow I'll add the because 2 more modules to be added and on assessment test for week 2. Okay, and so this week you can complete it, and maybe towards the end of this week we'll get into the module 3 as well. Yeah, so now I'll keep adding the modules, and in between, if you need any clarification or one more session like this, please let me know. So on that specific doubt areas alone, okay, we can discuss. So they're changing, but then the exam will change only by June or July of next year. Okay, so that is not a risk for you anyway. If you're writing the exam before June, July next year, that is not an issue. And even the changes will be very cosmetic. Okay, they will not change the entire body of knowledge, which has never happened. Maybe the structuring they may change a little bit. Some knowledge areas they may combine or delete or add one or two. I don't expect anything more than that, because a body of knowledge which is built over 30 years cannot be changed overnight. Okay, so from my side,